Ruko is getting ready for a bath when, out of nowhere, she discovers a man is literally hyperventilating on top of her. Ruko, thinking she's dealing with a pervert, slaps him right across the face, causing a nosebleed that could flood the place. She quickly starts looking around for her precious scissor blade, berating that pervert for daring to make a move on her. Just then, her best friend walks in and introduces that pervert as her father. All this circus began when Ruko joined Honnouji Academy. Honnouji Academy is a school ruled by its infamous 5-member student council, a group that seems to think they own the place. These members wear special uniforms, known as Goku uniforms, that give them abilities beyond what normal humans could ever dream of. Students who wear these uniforms aren't just special, they're practically superhuman. One day, while the school lesson is going smoothly, Iragamagori, a member of the student council, barges in, clearly on a mission. He's looking for someone who's broken the rules. It doesn't take long for him to find Suzuki, a poor fool who tried to steal a 1-star Goku uniform. Suzuki thinks he can run away, but that's not going to happen. He tries to fight back, thinking that a uniform he stole could somehow level the playing field. But it's a pathetic attempt. Ira, with his 3-star Goku uniform, completely demolishes him. The next day, a new student arrives in town. Ruko Madoi, a tough delinquent with a chip on her shoulder, is here. She's been jumping from school to school, trying to find answers about her father's mysterious murder. Ruko's journey brings her to Honnouji City, but on her way, she has a run-in with Mataro Mankinshoku and his gang, a bunch of wannabe thugs who think they can intimidate her. They clearly have no clue who they're messing with, as she quickly puts them in their place. Mataro's only hope of survival comes from his older sister, Mako Mankinshoku, who swoops in to save him, though the whole thing is more pathetic than heroic. Mako then casually heads off to class, leaving Ruko more confused than ever. When Ruko finally steps into Honnouji Academy, she crosses paths with Mako again. This time, Mako takes the opportunity to explain how the school works. Ruko learns that the majority of students, including Mako, are no stars, meaning they don't get to wear any of those special uniforms. These students are stuck in the slums of the city, living the lowest lives possible. But the star system means a lot here. Students with 1-star uniforms get to live in slightly better areas. Club captains get 2 stars. The truly elite members of the student council get 3 stars. And, at the very top of the hierarchy is Satsuki Kuryuin, the president of the student council, who sits on her throne, ruling over everyone with an iron fist, absolutely untouchable. Ruko, full of anger and desperate for answers, doesn't waste time. The first chance she gets, she rushes to confront Satsuki Kuryuin, the untouchable queen of Honnouji Academy. She's holding on to the hope that Satsuki knows something about the other half of the giant scissor blade her father left her before his mysterious death. Satsuki, of course, acts all calm and collected, like she's too good for anyone. Ruko, frustrated and impatient, lunges at her, demanding answers. But instead of facing Satsuki directly, she ends up taking a massive hit. Takaharu Fukuroda, the school's boxing club captain and one of the elite, steps in, wearing his 2-star Goku uniform, and knocks her down faster than she can blink. Ruko is utterly humiliated, getting knocked to the ground like she's nothing. Defeated and demoralized, she has no choice but to retreat, her pride shattered. Meanwhile, the student council, in their little meeting, discusses how to deal with this new troublemaker, probably too busy polishing their shiny uniforms to actually care about anything other than their power. Ruko, though, is already thinking of her next move. Far away from the school's drama, Ruko visits the place where her father died, his burned down home. But things get even weirder here. Without warning, she falls down a chute and lands in an underground room surrounded by old clothes. As she tries to figure out how to get out, her old injury from the fight with Fukuroda starts acting up, and some of her blood drips onto the pile of clothes below her. Suddenly, a voice cries out, begging for more of her blood. Before she can react, a living sailor uniform bursts out from the clothes, pins her to the wall, and completely envelops her, releasing an overwhelming surge of power. It's like something straight out of a nightmare, but now Ruko has power on her side. The next day, Fukuroda, still sore from his embarrassing defeat, has a new plan. He threatens to execute Mako Mankinshoku, the girl Ruko met earlier, in a twisted attempt to draw Ruko out of hiding. Ruko, as reckless as ever, can't let someone else suffer because of her, so she steps in, saving Mako. This sets off another round of ridiculousness when Ruko challenges Fukuroda to another fight. This time, though, she's got more than just a chip on her shoulder. With the scissor blade in one hand and the new power from her sailor uniform, Ruko completely dominates Fukuroda. She knocks him out with ease, destroying his precious Goku uniform in the process. Once again, she demands answers from Satsuki, determined to find the other half of the scissor blade, but it's clear that no one in this school is going to make things easy for her. After her intense win over the boxing club president, Ruko Madoi confronts Satsuki Kuryuin, determined to get some answers regarding her father's mysterious murder. But as usual, Satsuki isn't one to give anything away easily. Before Ruko can get anything substantial from her, Senketsu warns her that he will soon have to disengage the life fiber synchronization to prevent fatal blood loss. Ruko, naturally annoyed, complains about how much Senketsu seems to drink. It's like she's now the one stuck with a walking, talking, blood-sucking garment. But, despite her frustrations, Ruko knows she has no choice. She reluctantly agrees to retreat from the academy grounds, her body and mind clearly reaching their limits. Later, Ruko falls off a tramcar, passing out from exhaustion and landing in an unconscious heap. She's surrounded by a cackling Mataro Mankinshoku and his gang, and just when she's about to pass out, she's welcomed by more chaos. Ruko wakes up, groggy and disoriented, only to find herself lying in the Mankinshoku home. But there's a problem. Barazo Mankinshoku, Mako's father, is hyperventilating on top of her, making the situation 10 times more awkward. Ruko, naturally assuming the worst, thinks she's dealing with a pervert and whacks him upside the nose, giving him a nasty nosebleed in the process. She quickly starts looking around for her precious scissor blade, berating Barazo for daring to make a move on her, all while calling herself the Kanto vagabond and guitar case drifter. Out of nowhere, Mako appears and hands Ruko her guitar case. Ruko, still on edge, immediately pulls out her scissor blade and warns Mako to stay away from the pervert. But Mako just slides up to Barazo and casually calls him father, completely diffusing the awkward situation. Ruko, momentarily speechless, stumbles over her words and immediately apologizes, realizing her mistake. Mataro shows up soon after, followed by Sakuyo and Mako's mother. They all sit down for a meal, and Mako explains that her family runs a back alley clinic. She even mentions that her father treated Ruko's wounds. Talk about an unexpected turn of events. The Mankinshoku family is chaotic, but in their own way, they've provided Ruko with something she's never had before, a sense of normalcy. Meanwhile, as Ruko tries to digest everything happening in her life, the tennis club is planning something far more sinister. They're plotting to use an upcoming tournament as part of Hanoji Academy's plan to take over the world. And as the night falls, Ruko reflects on the bizarre turn her life has taken. She recalls the moment she was first introduced to Senketsu, the living uniform that's now a permanent part of her life. She thinks about how she came to call him Senketsu, and for a brief moment, she wonders if this strange bond with her uniform is the key to understanding her father's death and the chaos surrounding Hanoji Academy. The next day, Ruko and Mako are walking to school when Mako suddenly finds herself bombarded by a series of tennis ball volleys. It turns out that Mako is a member of the tennis club, and this attack is her punishment for missing practice the previous day, even though she had been held hostage. Mako can't catch a break. Ruko, of course, isn't about to let this slide. She storms up to confront the tennis club captain, Omiko Hakode. But, as usual, things go wrong. Ruko is knocked off school property and into a waterway, her life fiber-powered uniform failing to activate at the worst possible moment. It's just one more thing to add to her growing list of epic fails. Thankfully, Ruko is rescued by her teacher, Akiro Mikasugi, who takes her back to his house. When she wakes up, Akiro explains the full scope of her predicament. Senketsu, her kamui, requires her blood to function properly. Akiro confirms Ruko's suspicions that her father created Senketsu and reveals a key part of the kamui's design, a red, fingerless glove called Seki Teko, which has a built-in syringe. This bizarre glove allows Ruko to conveniently draw blood and feed it to Senketsu. Akiro promises to reveal more information, but only if Ruko can defeat Omiko, the tennis club captain. Ruko agrees without hesitation, because that's how she operates, no planning, just charging headfirst into the chaos. She heads back to school to face Omiko once again. This time, the challenge takes the form of a tennis match. The match starts, and Ruko's control over her power is all over the place. She's not used to this kind of physical combat, and several times, she ends up breaking her tennis racket in frustration. She quickly finds herself with a score of 0-40, but Senketsu, the ever-faithful uniform, encourages her to improvise. With a bit of creativity, Ruko uses the handle of her scissor blade to fashion a makeshift tennis racket. Sanejama, one of the Elite Four, tries to stop her, but Satsuki, who's conveniently watching from the sidelines, waves him off, allowing Ruko to continue. Ruko, now using her improvised racket, proceeds to easily outmatch Omiko and her Goku uniform. When the opportunity arises, Ruko destroys Omiko's uniform, crushing her opponent's chances of winning. It's another victory for Ruko, though it's clear that she's only scratching the surface of the bigger battle she's about to face. But just when it seems like the day is won, Satsuki herself appears before Ruko. She challenges Ruko to a fight, drawing a blade called Secret Sword, Bakuzen, a sword so powerful that it can even cut through a kamui. Ruko, feeling the strain of her previous battles, notices that her blood is running low again. Senketsu alerts her to the fact that she's on the verge of collapse. With no other choice, Ruko retreats, but not before vowing that she will finish the fight with Satsuki the next time they meet. Akiro is busy teaching a history lesson about Hitler's rise to power, but it doesn't take long for him to ditch the class, with Ruko following him like a lost puppy. Out of nowhere, Mako comes crashing in like a missile, somehow managing to land on her back with Eikiro's letter. Classrooms in this place are apparently just as safe as a battlefield. Later, Eikiro takes Ruko aside for a private chat. Ruko, still the curious mess that she is, demands answers about how Eikiro knows Senketsu and her father. Eikiro, always ready to be mysterious, starts talking about life fibers and her dad's work. He casually drops that he's an old acquaintance of Ruko's father. After getting his hands on Ruko's father's letter, Eikiro discovers the Kamui uniform and, naturally, begins plotting his next moves. He assures Ruko that he will investigate, though she doesn't seem like the type to trust him. Meanwhile, in the sewing lab, Inumida and a mysterious blonde man are working on a specimen, trying to combine threads made of level 5 life fibers. Things go south quickly when the specimen transforms into a huge, hulking beast that goes wild, but Inumida, being the ever-reliable weirdo, quickly subdues it. The blonde man notes how dangerous it is to go beyond level 3 with the fibers, as it drives people insane. But here's the real kicker, it's actually a miracle that Ruko can wear a Kamui uniform made entirely of life fibers. It seems like Ruko is just one big walking disaster waiting to happen. Back at the Kuryuin Manor, Satsuki wastes no time barging in to take Junketsu, her precious Kamui uniform. She strips off her clothes and cuts her finger to feed Junketsu her blood. Naturally, the uniform awakens and begins to take over Satsuki. As always, things seem to spiral out of control whenever these characters get involved with life fibers. Over at Mako's house, Barazo, Matero, and Guts fall asleep almost immediately, like the world's least interesting group of sleep champions. Tsukuyo gives Ruko some pajamas, which leads to the oddest question ever, whether Ruko likes to show off her body. While Ruko awkwardly gets dressed, Barazo, Matero, and Guts, in what is clearly a poor decision, open the door to sneak a peek at Ruko. It's almost as if they're competing for the title of worst neighbors ever. Meanwhile, Mako notices that Senketsu has goosebumps all over it, which, if anything, is the only thing more uncomfortable than the whole situation. The next day, Satsuki steps up to challenge Ruko, revealing her Kamui, Junketsu, and as it feeds on her blood, the uniform clings tightly to her, showing off way too much skin. It's almost as if the uniform's main goal is to remind everyone how powerful and superior Satsuki is, as if that wasn't already painfully obvious. Senketsu, not impressed by the display, warns Ruko about the overwhelming strength of her opponent. But Ruko, in her typical reckless fashion, charges forward, slashing her sword at Satsuki. She loses some blood in the process, but it's nothing new, she's always running on empty anyway. Satsuki, being the overconfident villain she is, effortlessly blocks Ruko's every move and, with a light tap, sends Ruko flying across the arena. As the girls tear through the school, Senketsu sounds the alarm that Ruko's blood is running dangerously low. But, of course, Ruko doesn't stop. After Satsuki lands another heavy blast on her, Senketsu just shuts down, probably because it can't handle her self-destructive tendencies anymore. Satsuki then goes on to declare that everything she does is pure, like she's the knight in shining armor here. Sure, Satsuki will buy that. Just when things seem to go from bad to worse, Mako jumps in with her usual nonsense, proclaiming that Ruko's chest is bigger than Satsuki's. She even claims that her family noticed Ruko's nice rack and encourages Ruko to strip down. The audacity is truly something else. Back to the fight, Satsuki slams her blade down, and Ruko manages to block it with her scissor blade. Now, she gets a little smarter, she activates her Seki Teko and becomes one with Senketsu, reigniting her power. With a new burst of energy, she actually starts to overwhelm Satsuki. Finally, Ruko seems like she's ready to do something impressive. She switches her scissor blade to decapitation mode, trying to strip Satsuki of her uniform. Unfortunately, Satsuki is too fast and dodges just in time. The fight continues, with blows exchanged that shake the entire arena. Ruko, determined as always, vows to crush anyone in her way to make Satsuki talk. In response, Satsuki, who clearly doesn't understand the concept of quitting, withdraws her blade and accepts Ruko's challenge, ready for more. Because, obviously, nothing is more important to Satsuki than proving she's the queen of everything. Ruko wakes up to a strange and unsettling sight. Tsukuyo is washing and, quite disturbingly, drowning Senketsu in what seems like a fit of frustration. Before Ruko can process what's happening, Mako cheerfully reminds her that today is no late day, the day when non-star students must race through a deadly obstacle course to avoid being expelled. You'd think the school would have more important things to focus on, but apparently, forcing students to nearly die for a spot in the class is the best way to promote discipline. As the game begins, students scramble to get to class, but the stairs suddenly transform into a giant slide, sending the entire mob tumbling down. Ruko, not one to go down without a fight, stabs her scissor blade into the stairs to prevent herself from falling. In an almost comical move, she throws Mako ahead to the first checkpoint, because of course, Ruko's priorities are a bit out of whack. On the way, Ruko bumps into a young girl named Mako. Taking pity on her, Ruko helps both Mako and Mako get to the checkpoint, even though the whole situation feels like a chaotic mess. Meanwhile, Barazo, Mako's father, is in a car with Mako's brother, Guts, heading toward Ruko's location. But in a classic display of bad timing, Mako grabs Ruko's pants as she's hanging on for dear life, causing her panties to be revealed. Barazo, of course, gets distracted by this and crashes the car. He orders his son to take Senketsu to Ruko. The chaos continues as Ruko, Mako, and Mako jump across a dangerous road covered in spikes. Mako, of course, can't help herself and yanks at Ruko's pants again during her jump. Mataro, on his bike, sees Ruko's panties and crashes spectacularly, too. As if this wasn't bad enough, he also asks Guts to deliver Senketsu to Ruko. Meanwhile, Mako plays dead in the middle of the road, stopping a car just in time for Ruko and the gang to hijack it. They storm through the 2-star district, only to have bullets rain down on them from the adults.
What the hell is even that?
Mako, not one to leave things to chance, pulls out a turret to fight back, and somehow, they make it to the front of the school. When they finally reach the school, Guts arrives with Senketsu, but as they're rushing to get in, Ruko trips and falls over. As she does, she once again has her pants pulled by Mako, causing Guts to suffer a major nosebleed. Guts passes out, and Mako, seizing the opportunity, grabs the Kamui uniform, thinking it will give her the power to overthrow Satsuki. However, as with most things in this school, things don't go as planned. The uniform is too stiff because Sakuyo packed it with too much starch, and Mako can't even move in it. Ruko and Mako keep running toward the school. But once again, Mako's traps kick in, sending them sliding down the hill around Honnouji Academy. As they barrel down the hill, Mako spots a Ferris wheel used by Satsuki's followers at the bottom. Not wasting any time, Ruko and Mako steal the cart and ride it to the top, hoping to make it just in time. Meanwhile, in the bleachers, Iragamagori, having had enough of Mako's antics, expels her for treason, because, of course, no one gets away with sabotaging Satsuki's perfect plans. With the clock ticking down, Ruko and Mako crash into the classroom just as the attendance is being taken, managing to barely make it on time. It's chaotic, it's absurd, but somehow they survive another round in this ridiculous game of survival. Tsumugu Kinegase rolls up on his sleek motorcycle, looking all cool and mysterious like he's the hero in an action movie. He parks on the terraces of Honnouji Academy, takes aim with his sniper rifle, and sets his sights on Ruko. But before he can pull the trigger, a new group of troublemakers makes an appearance, Kusanasuke and his gardening club, all furious that Tsumugu has dared to trample over their beloved flower garden. It's like the most ridiculous reason to start a fight, but this is Honnouji Academy, so nothing makes sense. Tsumugu, probably tired of the nonsense, throws his cigarette butt onto the flower bed. This sends Kusanasuke into a rage, and he attacks with his mutated Venus fly traps because of course he has mutant plants at his disposal. Tsumugu, with a bored look on his face, unleashes a barrage of gunfire, cutting through the plants. Kusanasuke loses his strength in the fight, and Tsumugu finishes him off, making sure to tell him two very important things. It's unclear if they were useful, but the situation is definitely not one for a peaceful garden party. Back in the biology club's lab, things get even weirder. A mad scientist has captured Mako, using her as a hostage and guinea pig for his experiments. Ruko, however, is not having it. She easily defeats everyone in the lab with her signature move, Senai Sushitsu, and frees Mako from her bizarre predicament. As she shrinks her scissor blade, Senketsu casually comments on Ruko's salty blood and how she's apparently getting fat from eating too many croquettes. Because, of course, Senketsu knows everything about her body now. Meanwhile, Mako pulls out her bento from her bosom, ready to eat, but before she can even take a bite, Tsumugu shows up and shoots at her. Tsumugu reassures Ruko that he has no intention of harming Mako, but, like any self-respecting villain, he pins Ruko down and demands that she strip her clothes off. He insists that he's only after the Kamui uniform, not her, and wants no harm to come to her. But just as things are getting uncomfortably weird, a pin hits Tsumugu's hand. Tsumugu, clearly annoyed, lets Ruko go and leaves without finishing what he started. Later that night, Eikuro Mikasugi, being the mysterious figure he is, tells Tsumugu to leave Ruko alone. He explains that Ruko is the key to stopping the Kuryuans and that messing with her will only make things worse. Tsumugu, in his usual stoic way, says he plans to terminate the Kamui before it becomes a bigger threat. Eikuro, probably more emotionally invested in Ruko than he's letting on, reminds him of Kinu, his late wife, who clearly had some connection to the situation. Back at Mako's home, the Mankinshoku family is happily wolfing down their food. Mako notices that Ruko is leaving without eating much, which is strange because Ruko never turns down a meal. Meanwhile, Tsumugu, in his own little world, performs routine maintenance on his equipment. In Satsuki's throne room, Her followers give her the rundown on Tsumugu's anti-uniform technology, and Yumura, always the one to analyze things in excruciating detail, points out that Tsumugu is specifically targeting Ruko. Nanon, never one to sit still, asks Satsuki if she can handle the situation herself. The next day, Senketsu, showing a rare moment of concern, asks Ruko to leave him behind. He doesn't want to put her in more danger, which is a nice sentiment, but Ruko's not about to listen to her living uniform's safety advice. Meanwhile, Mako and her family eavesdrop on Ruko's conversation. Mako heads to school alone, while Ruko waits at the entrance of the academy and her mind focused on one thing, Tsumugu. He's out there, somewhere, preparing for their next encounter. Then, like a typical villain, Tsumugu doesn't waste any time. He shoots missiles at Ruko, and from the side, unleashes a barrage of gunfire, making it clear that he's not interested in giving her a moment's peace. Ruko, determined to survive this crazy school, tries to hold her ground. But just when Senketsu feels like his power is about to drain, the situation takes another turn. Out of nowhere, the poet, backyard gardening, and Rakugo clubs join the fight, turning this already chaotic scene into something straight out of a badly organized circus.
Oh, hell no!
From a distance, Nanon watches the battle unfold. She tells Yumura that she's gathering intel, noting that she's well versed in Satsuki's way of thinking. With a conductor's precision, she orchestrates her band through the chaos, adding yet another layer of absurdity to the situation. Ryuko, constantly on the move, runs through several traps set by Tsumugu, each one wearing down Senketsu more and more. Eventually, she crashes through a window, landing in the bathroom, only for Tsumugu to follow her in, demanding she strip off her clothes. His explanation is as baffling as his actions. He talks about a woman betrayed by her clothing, because, of course, this entire school has no concept of personal space or normal interactions. Just as things take a more uncomfortable turn, Senketsu jumps in to protect Ruko, shielding her with his own body. Tsumugu, in his infinite wisdom, shouts that all Kamui are parasites, as if he knows anything about the bond between Ruko and Senketsu. This is where Mako steps in, finally having enough of the madness. She explains, quite simply, that Ruko loves Senketsu, and no amount of weird lectures from Tsumugu will change that. Of course, Tsumugu denies that clothing can even talk. Mako rips Senketsu free from Ruko's body and tells her to take care of her friends. It's a strange moment of clarity in the middle of this circus. Somehow, Tsumugu, despite his cold exterior, hears Senketsu's voice and begins to realize something he hadn't before, that Ruko and Senketsu genuinely care for each other. Before he can fully process this, Nanon and her band arrive, adding more chaos to the mix. But Tsumugu uses a smoke bomb to disappear with Ruko, leaving the entire scene in confusion. Meanwhile, Satsuki, watching the whole thing unfold from her throne, is pleased. Nanon has done her job well, and Satsuki is one step closer to whatever her endgame is. Over at Tsumugu's home, Ruko wakes up, and in a rare moment of introspection, she realizes that she and Senketsu have to get stronger together. It's the kind of realization that only comes after surviving ridiculous amounts of danger. Outside, Eikiro Mikasugi expresses his gratitude to Tsumugu for saving Ruko. Tsumugu, however, is far from content. He tells Eikiro that he's giving Ruko one more chance. If Ruko and Senketsu become monsters, he won't hesitate to destroy her Kamui uniform. Ruko is beyond frustrated and demands Eikiro Mikasugi explain himself and his relationship with Tsumugu. She has a photo in hand, and her anger only makes her more determined to get answers. After revealing that she had Mataro track down Tsumugu, she makes it clear that she's not backing down until she knows everything. Eikiro responds by stripping off his clothes, because that's exactly what anyone would do when trying to explain themselves. He goes on to say that they had to test her potential to defeat Satsuki Kuryuin. Ryuko, of course, isn't satisfied. She demands to know what her father's research was about. Eikiro, with his usual cryptic tone, only responds with nudist speech in a voice that sounds far too seductive for the situation. Meanwhile, in the sewing club, Iori receives a large shipment of life fibers. As he inspects the shipment, he casually mentions that Lady Satsuki rejected their proposal to increase the percentage of life fiber in the Goku uniforms. Hauker reminds Uzu that they're not supposed to act outside their orders. It's clear that Satsuki's plans are more complicated than anyone is willing to admit. Back at the Kuryuin Manor, Satsuki reflects on the stress that comes with wearing the Kamui uniform. Behind her, Uzu, ever eager for a fight, asks for permission to take on Ruko. Satsuki, knowing Uzu's longing for worthy opponents, recalls the event at Northern Kanto, Suzukigahara, from 3 years ago. Back then, Uzu and his 500 men thought they could challenge Satsuki. But, in a stunning display of power, Satsuki used her Kai technique to obliterate Uzu's entire army. Undeterred, Uzu tried to sneak attack her by leaping to her back, but Satsuki easily defeated him with a swift strike from the hilt of her sword. Uzu commented that Satsuki had been holding back her true strength. Satsuki, unfazed, apologized to her butler, Soroi, for breaking a teacup in the process, because breaking teacups is obviously the biggest issue here. Satsuki then receives a call from Mistress Raggio, which, in typical fashion, leads to more manipulations behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Uzu waits at the sports gym for Ruko's arrival, the crowd buzzing with anticipation for what's to come. Nanon, never one to miss a chance for drama, remarks that she would have made her move, too, if things were different. Ira, as usual, explains that Satsuki isn't here because she doesn't find this fight interesting enough to watch. Uzu, determined to prove himself, transforms into his Goku uniform, ready for battle. Ruko attacks first, but Uzu easily blocks every move. She tries to run around him, but Uzu catches up to her with ease and gives her a playful tap on the head. As the fight intensifies, Uzu activates Higi Tengensu, opening all his eyes to gain an advantage. According to Inumida, this gives Uzu the ability to detect every preparatory move Ruko makes. With nowhere to run, Ruko is cornered, and Uzu unleashes his devastating Shinsoku Senbonzuki technique, delivering blow after blow. Ruko whispers to Senketsu, seeking some form of help. Then, Uzu cuts off part of Ruko's right shoulder piece, causing it to shatter into pieces of fabric that cling to Uzu's mask. Temporarily blinded, Uzu stumbles, and Ruko seizes the opportunity. She tears apart his clothes, collecting his life fiber in the process. Stripped of his uniform, Uzu refuses to give up. His resolve is strong as ever. However, he's swiftly punished by Eiga, who whips him for losing the fight. Later that night, as Ruko and Senketsu chat about the battle, Mako and Matero overhear Ruko talking to herself, probably wondering if she's lost her mind. Back in the sewing laboratory, Uzu, bruised but not beaten, asks Shiro for a request. In front of Satsuki and Soroi, Uzu lies down shamefully in the rain, lamenting his overconfidence and asking Satsuki for another chance. Satsuki, amused by his persistence, grants him that chance. Uzu reveals his resolve, and Satsuki's amusement is clear. This is just another test for him. The next day, Ruko receives another letter of challenge from Uzu and agrees to meet him at Hanajigahara. Uzu transforms once again, this time wearing a new version of his Goku uniform. Ruko cuts off a piece of his shoulder to blind him, thinking she's outsmarted him. However, despite her tactics, Uzu proves his skill by firing a shinai directly into Ruko's stomach. Ruko quickly notices something strange. Uzu's eyes are sewn shut. Uzu overpowers her with his kendo techniques, and Satsuki explains that Uzu's strength is linked to his Goku uniform's connection to his Shingatsu. His Goku uniform literally becomes an extension of his eyes. Ruko, using her scissor blade, tries to cut through Uzu's armor, but the fight takes a brutal turn. After furious pummeling, Uzu attempts to deliver the final blow, but his Goku uniform shuts off, overheating due to the strain. In that brief moment, Ruko manages to escape underground, still determined to uncover the truth about her father's death. Later, Shiro repairs the life fibers in Uzu's armor, giving him more mobility. Uzu, grateful, thanks Satsuki for helping him recover, but declines her invitation to a tea party due to his heightened sensitivity after the battle. After a long, eventful day, Ruko and Mako's family share a hearty dinner together. For Ruko, this is a rare moment of peace, and as she prepares to head to the bath, Senketsu notices how happy she seems. Ruko explains that she loves these lively dinners, a luxury she never had growing up. Her mother died when she was young, and her father sent her off to a boarding school soon after. This is the first time she's felt a sense of family warmth in years. But the moment is cut short when Ruko catches Matero, Guts, and Mako's dad peeping from behind the curtains. Without hesitation, she beats them up, not tolerating any kind of intrusion. The next day at school, Ruko finds herself under attack by 3 club presidents from the former acrobatic club. They think they can take her down, but Ruko effortlessly defeats them, stripping them not only of their dignity but also their ridiculous positions as club leaders. Soon after, Ruko has an idea. She decides to start her own fight club. Satsuki, being the ever-watchful overseer, approves the idea. Ira hands Ruko the necessary paperwork and explains the club's required meetings, but Ruko shoves the responsibility onto Mako. Mako, despite her lack of preparation, ends up handling the paperwork and meetings like a trooper. In the meantime, Mako's family moves into a new condo, enjoying their upgraded life. They gather for another dinner, a stark contrast to the disjointed meals of the past. As the days pass, Ruko goes on a rampage, challenging and defeating various club presidents, while Mako works hard to improve her family's lifestyle. The contrast between their two paths is clear: Ruko's fight for survival and Mako's pursuit of a better life. One night, the family gathers for dinner again, but this time it feels different. Mako's parents and brother are too busy with errands to join her, leaving her alone to enjoy the comforts of their new life while Ruko continues her one-woman war against the Academy's elite. In Satsuki's lair, Nanon and the others express concern over the growing chaos. Yumita notes that Satsuki may have ulterior motives behind the approval of Ruko's fight club. As usual, Satsuki has her own plans, and she's playing everyone, including Ruko, like a well-oiled machine. Eventually, Ruko resigns from the fight club. Satsuki, not one to let things go easily, offers Mako a 2-star Goku uniform and tells her that if she wants to keep her new life, she'll have to defeat Ruko. Mako, caught in a whirlwind of pressure, leaps into action with a flying kick, unleashing a barrage of golden objects on Ruko. The fight escalates as Mako clashes with Ruko's Scissor blade using her own bat. The two go at it fiercely, each trying to outmatch the other. Mako's family arrives to cheer her on, but it becomes clear that Ruko isn't fighting back the way she should be. She's holding back, confused about the situation. Mako, noticing Ruko's lack of retaliation, pauses her attack and asks her why she isn't fighting with full force. She also turns to her family, demanding to know why they didn't stop her. It's an emotional moment as Mako, realizing how much she's been manipulated by Satsuki and her own desires, decides to disband the fight club. In a symbolic act, Mako removes her Goku uniform and offers it to Ruko to destroy. Mako and her family strip their clothes off in a strange act of apology. It's clear that things are changing, and Ruko is starting to understand what true friendship and loyalty really means. Satsuki Kuryuin, always scheming, announces a new system that sends the entire school into chaos. The new plan is a 7-day battle where students must fight each other to earn Goku uniforms and the right to stand out. Naturally, this throws the school into a state of emergency, with students now ready to tear each other apart just to wear fancy uniforms. Because, obviously, that's the most important thing here. Survive the battle, get a Goku uniform, and you're golden. The entire school is left on edge, ready to see who will make it to the top. Meanwhile, Ruko decides it's time to bring Mako Meikenshoku to the ruins of her old house. She hopes to find some answers about her father's death, though it's unclear if she expects any sort of breakthrough. In the basement, where she first discovered Senketsu, there's nothing but silence and dust. No answers, just the echo of past events. With no further clues to find, Ruko and Mako head back home. But as luck would have it, their scooter runs out of gas, because of course it does. They're stranded and stuck, as always. Their misfortune leads them to an unexpected encounter with Iragamagori, the chair of the disciplinary committee and one of the Elite Four. He's just gotten his driving license and is taking a week off. A massive, tough guy like Gamagori, who runs the disciplinary committee, decides to take a break and help out Ruko and Mako. He offers them a ride home, but their ride is far from smooth. They're ambushed by the Automotive Airsoft Club, led by Ryosuke Todoroki, who seem to be targeting Gamagori's 3-star Goku uniform, Shackle Regalia. These guys are after his uniform, thinking they can make a name for themselves by taking it down. A flashback reveals more about Iragamagori's past, showing his time at Rindu Junior High. Back then, he had to deal with local bullies like Hojo, whose father owned a company, and Imagawa, whose father was the local police chief. These bullies were the worst kind, entitled and cruel. They made a younger student jump off the roof just because he spilled milk on Imagawa. Ira stepped in and handled the situation, showing his strength long before he became the giant of a man he is today. Gamagori remembers a time when he failed to stop a bullying incident at Rindu Junior High. The boy, threatened by the bullies, was about to jump off a roof. But just as it seemed the worst was about to happen, a freshman named Satsuki Kuryuin, who already seemed far too powerful for her age, appeared out of nowhere. She stopped the boy from falling by using what could only be described as a Kuryuin Deluxe trampoline. She not only saved the boy but also dealt with the bullies in the most dramatic way possible. Satsuki, who already had a plan for everything, revealed she had removed the bullies' parents from power. She bought out the company owned by Hojo's dad and exposed Imagawa's father for taking bribes, leading to his arrest. She didn't just stop at ruining their families, she used her katana to wipe out the bullies and their whole gang, proving that she wasn't someone to mess with. With a cold confidence, Satsuki declared her rule over the entire junior high, making it clear that she wasn't going to let anyone stand in her way. When Gamagori asked her what made her any different from the bullies, she smugly replied that she didn't leech off her parents, unlike them, because apparently, being born rich and destroying lives is the right way to climb to the top. Back in the present, Gamagori unleashes his 3-star Goku uniform, which seems to get even more ridiculous when it evolves into Scourge Regalia. Powered by masochism, his uniform turns his pain into power and he uses it to decimate his opponents with ease. After all that chaos, Gamagori sees Ruko and Mako off at the gas station, probably thankful that for once, he didn't have to deal with the entire world coming after him. A week later, the chaos of Hanoji Academy reaches a new level with the sudden death runoff election. Only Ruko and the Elite Four remain, and they all gather at the top, ready to face off in what's supposed to be the final test. But Ryuko, who has never backed down from a challenge, is ready to fight. Satsuki, in her usual commanding way, challenges Ryuko to defeat each member of the Elite Four in exchange for details about her father's death. Ryuko's first opponent is none other than Gamagori, who, judging by his mood, is definitely not going to make this easy. Era Gamagori and Ryuko Madoi are about to face off, and the tension is palpable. They exchange a few words before the match begins. Ryuko, as expected, transforms into her combat-ready uniform, ready for whatever Era throws her way. Inumida, standing by as usual, reminds her that this will be a one-on-one fight with no interference. Satsuki, the ever-strategic leader, explains the Pillars system, where the more students an individual defeats, the higher their pillar rises. It's a twisted system that's meant to sort out the weak from the strong, but it's all about appearances. Nanon, observing from the sidelines, remarks that Ira is so considerate of his students. Meanwhile, Uzu regrets beating up so many students, knowing now that he'll be the last one to face Ryuko. Ira, calm and collected, declares that he fights only in self-defense, which, if anything, makes him seem like a living punching bag. The crowd gathers, and a female announcer broadcasts the match to the city. At Mako's house, Matero and Barazzo try to figure out how to work the TV. Barazzo discovers that the TV is empty, and they all rush off to find a real one. Meanwhile, Akiro Mikasugi meets up with Ryuko and Mako. With a flick of his acupuncture needle, he freezes Mako in place, giving him a chance to warn Ryuko about her upcoming fight. The match begins. Ryuko, confident as ever, transforms into her uniform, but Ira does something strange. He transforms into a mummy-like state, donning questionable gear that makes him look like a walking bandage commercial. He asks Ryuko to attack him, saying he can only defend if someone attacks him first. Ryuko, still figuring out his strategy, responds that she'll only attack if he attacks first. Not one to sit idly by, Ira beats himself into his second transformation, Scourge Regalia, by using a technique called Higijijo Jibaku. It's as uncomfortable as it sounds. Ryuko, feeling the heat of the fight, uses her finishing move, but it's not as effective as she hoped. Ira's armor has no life fibers on the outside, just cloth armor. He's more stubborn than anyone gives him credit for. Meanwhile, Mako's family watches from the Star Electronics store, enjoying the spectacle. Ira, in a flashback, recalls his final task, stopping Satsuki, but she isn't someone who can be stopped. When Ira tried to carry out his mission, Satsuki shredded part of his clothes, revealing the steel-plated body armor beneath. She managed to pierce through it, leaving Ira badly damaged. Despite this, Ira refused to lose. He pulled out Satsuki's sword, but the real lesson came when he witnessed her power firsthand. It was in that moment that Ira vowed to wait for her for 2 years, training to become strong enough to face her. Back in the present, Ryuko is on the verge of falling off the platform. In a dramatic move, she slams her scissor blade into the side of the arena, stopping her fall. But the moment also causes her clothes to catch the blade, revealing her chest to Mako and everyone else watching. Predictably, Mako and the others experience a major nosebleed. Ira, undeterred, unleashes a barrage of whips at Ryuko, now in full battle mode. After breaking the ball gag in his mouth, he pulls out his wheel weapons, shouting that he's going to mold Ryuko into a model student. He tries to crush her with 2 giant molds, but Ryuko isn't ready to go down yet. Senketsu urges her to revert to her more powerful form. Ira, showing no restraint, unleashes his whip of love, grabbing Ryuko with it. Senketsu bites into Ira's whip, trying to stop him from causing any more damage. Inside the mummified form of Ira, Ryuko rips herself free from his grip, transforming into a new form, Senketsu Senjin. With Ira's life fibers exposed, Ryuko goes on the offensive. She finishes off Ira and absorbs his life fibers in a decisive blow. Satsuki, watching from her throne, comments that Ira was too arrogant. Akiro, impressed by Ryuko's performance, watches the aftermath with a hint of approval. Just as Ira is about to commit seppuku out of shame, Satsuki stops him, telling him to wipe his tears. She doesn't need his dramatic self-destruction, she just needs him to get back to work. The next match is of Inumida, and Ryuko's victory doesn't mean the fight for survival is over yet. Back when he was younger, Hoka Inumida was already up to no good. He hacked into Revox Corporation's security system and caused their stock prices to drop like a stone. You'd think that would get him a gold star for being a rebellious genius, but instead, he got captured by Revox employees. But Satsuki Kuryuin, always the opportunist, swooped in and saw potential in him. Instead of punishing him for his illegal activities, she offered him a chance to use his skills in the real world rather than just the virtual one. She invited him to join Hanoji Academy. Now, the Naturals election finals are heating up, and Ryuko Madoi finds herself facing off against Inumida's probe Regalia. Inumida uses his uniform to analyze every move Ryuko makes. His sensors predict her actions before she even gets the chance to do them. But Ryuko doesn't play by the rules. She pushes herself to the limit, attacking faster than Inumuta's sensors can keep up. It's like watching someone who's more about chaos than strategy, but that's what makes Ryuko so dangerous. Realizing that his usual tactics aren't enough, Inumuta changes his approach. He activates optical camouflage to make himself invisible. Now, he's free to launch invisible attacks from every angle, forcing Ryuko to the very edge of the arena. Inumuta probably thinks he's won, he's got Ryuko on the ropes. But Ryuko, being the mess of a human she is, doesn't give up. She expands Senketsu's eye, attacking the entire arena at once. Inumuta, who thought he could evade every strike, finds himself completely exposed. With Inumuta immobilized and nowhere to run, Ryuko is ready to deliver the final blow. But just when it seems like victory is in her grasp, Inumuta surprises everyone. He forfeits the match. Ryuko, confused and probably a little frustrated, doesn't know what to make of this. Inumuta explains that he doesn't care about winning. His main goal is to collect data, and by forfeiting, he saves his uniform, which has already gathered valuable data on Senketsu. Inumuta is the kind of person who values information over anything else, even if it means losing a fight. Ryuko's next opponent is Nanon Jacuser, and to her dismay, Nanon's 3-star Goku uniform, Symphony Regalia, isn't just any uniform, it's a massive war machine with enough firepower to make anyone rethink their life choices. Nanon attacks Ryuko with monstrous sonic vibrations, launching an arsenal of music-themed weaponry that would make a heavy metal band jealous. It's overwhelming, and Ryuko is struggling just to keep up. But of course, it only gets worse when Nanon takes things to the next level. She transforms her Symphony Regalia into a flying configuration, giving her the ability to hover above the arena. When Ryuko protests, pointing out that the rules don't allow fighters to leave the arena, Nanon smugly informs her that the rule only applies to falling out of the arena. Nanon hovers over to Satsuki, showing off like she's some sort of flying diva. She clarifies that the power she wields was given to her by Satsuki, and she uses it better than anyone else. As if to underline her devotion, Nanon flashes back to when she first made a promise to always stand by Satsuki's side back when they were kids at High-Handed Academy. In a bizarre flashback moment, Nanon recalls how she easily manipulated the boys into building her a sandcastle. She claims she would share it with no one except Satsuki, her best friend. Satsuki, being as extra as always, showed her own sandcastle, a towering skyscraper, saying she could look down on all the adults in the city. Of course, Satsuki declared that buildings which crumble in the wind aren't worth having. Nanon, always the realist, pointed out that all buildings eventually crumble. But Satsuki, with a touch of crazy wisdom, responded that skyscrapers built inside her heart would never fall. Satsuki's poetic nonsense somehow impresses Nanon, who vows to help her from that moment on. Back in the present, Ryuko is left struggling to get close to Nanon. Realizing she's not getting anywhere with brute force, Ryuko ties a thread to her Scissor blade and uses it to lasso the Symphony Regalia, trying to get some kind of leverage. Bracing herself with Senketsu's skirt spikes, Ryuko begins tossing Nanon around, relying on Senketsu's life fiber-infused defenses to protect herself from Nanon's attacks. But Nanon isn't about to make this easy. She starts targeting the arena itself, hoping to disqualify Ryuko by making her fall. In classic Ryuko fashion, she quickly comes up with a countermeasure by having Senketsu reconfigure into a flight-capable version, the Senketsu Shippu. Meanwhile, Eikuro Mikasugi is troubled by how quickly Senketsu has been evolving. He contacts Tsumugu Kinagase, urging him to prepare for the worst-case scenario. Tsumugu begins making his way to Hanoji Academy, knowing things are about to get out of hand. Back in the arena, Ryuko's persistence is starting to push Nanon's temper to the breaking point. Furious that Ryuko won't back down, Nanon declares that the sky is her world, and she resumes her attack with even more force. The first Naturals election finals are turning into a chaotic mess as Ryuko faces off against Nanon Jacuser. Meanwhile, in the slums of Hano City, the Mankenshoku family is glued to their rented TV, trying to keep up with the match. No one notices the strange blonde girl in a pink dress casually strolling by, probably because no one has any real awareness of what's going on outside of their little bubble. Back at Hanoji Academy, Ryuko is flying through the air, trying to dodge Nanon's endless barrage of attacks. With her new Shippu form giving her the ability to fly, Ryuko moves like a blur, avoiding Nanon's sonic attacks, but still failing to break through the defenses of the giant airship. She tries to sneak up on Nanon but is quickly blasted away by a pop-up speaker. Guess what? Sneaky tricks don't work when you're dealing with someone who probably spends their time getting way too fancy with her technology. Ryuko decides it's time to stop playing games and charges straight for Satsuki Kuryuin, thinking she can just bypass Nanon and go for the bigger challenge. Of course, Nanon won't let that happen. She blasts Ruko back into the arena, transforms her airship into a grave mode, and unleashes every weapon she has. But Ruko, showing an ounce of creativity, grabs a missile and hurls it back at Nanon, blowing up her precious symphony regalia. Meanwhile, Iragamagori, who apparently has nothing better to do than criticize, chides Nanon for making a rookie mistake. Mako, being her usual mess of chaos, accidentally bumps into Hoka and Yumuta's laptop, triggering a violent response from the ever-so-charming intelligence officer. In the arena, Ruko continues to be the unstoppable disaster that she is, pounding Nanon with her scissor blade. Nanon tries to convince her to fight like a proper person, but Ruko doesn't care. She's already planning her next move, defeat her third Elite Four member. Too bad she doesn't realize that she hasn't absorbed any life fibers yet, and, once again, she's out of her league. Satsuki warns her not to underestimate her strongest enforcers, and the crowd starts chanting encore. As expected, Nanon returns with a new form of her symphony regalia, Da Capo. Before Ruko can even blink, Nanon blasts her with another sonic attack, and this time, it's tuned to the infamous Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Ruko can't even move, she's immobilized as Nanon explains how she's used sound waves to mess with Senketsu. Everyone else, meanwhile, just watches Ruko struggle, with Sanejama screaming at her to do something, anything, but Ruko is clearly out of her depth. Nanon snaps at him, wondering why he's suddenly acting like he cares, but quickly recovers her smug composure. It's bad manners to talk during a performance, she says, because that's what you say when you're still mad about being shown up. After what seems like an eternity, Ruko manages to get back up. She calms herself and takes a stance. Nanon fires another blast. But this time, Ruko manages to form a barrier with her Kamui and starts using Nanon's own sound against her. Yumita, the know-it-all, realizes that Ruko is forcing the sound waves to match her own. But Mako, of course, is way more impressed, thinking Ruko is just really awesome. Ira, being the cynical jerk he is, asks Yumita if this is a pure essence demonstration. Yumita, as always, responds with snark, calling it abject stupidity. Inside Ruko's head, Senketsu, who's finally recovered, admits that he likes the sound of her heartbeat. Ruko tells him to focus on that sound as she sends Nanon's blast right back at her. Nanon, now desperate, cranks up the power, but Ruko, finally in control, fights back harder. Yumita realizes that Ruko's Senketsu, with more life fibers, is able to resonate at a much stronger frequency than Nanon's symphony regalia. Ruko's attack overwhelms Nanon, stunning her long enough for Ruko to finish the job with her scissor blade. Above the arena, Sumagu Kenegase passes a weird bullet to Akiro Mikasugi, who's ready to use it on Ruko if things go south. Nanon, now defeated, joins the others in the bleachers, still steaming from her loss. Mako makes a pretty accurate observation, noticing that Iragamagori isn't giving Nanon the usual treatment over her jumpsuit, and wonders if women just get a pass from his harsh judgment. Meanwhile, Satsuki gets in touch with Shiro Iori, who informs her that he's already working on finding flaws in the other Elite Four uniforms, including that of jack users. In the arena, Ruko faces off against her final opponent, Uzu Sanejama, who is determined to finish their unfinished business. Ruko, not one to run away this time, tries to act confident. Sanejama, of course, thinks he's still the superior fighter and is eager to prove it. They both transform and charge at each other, ready for an epic battle, until a mysterious pink-clad girl suddenly appears between them. Of course, this interruption totally messes up the fight. Satsuki, who's always ready to yell at someone, orders Uzu to fall back immediately, which leaves her subordinates more than a little confused. Even Yumita is lost, noting that he has no data on this new girl, as if he can predict everything in the world. Meanwhile, in the Kuryuin manor, Satsuki's mother, Ragio, gets out of the bath, all relaxed and ready for her day. Outside, she meets Rei Humaru, who informs her that the Grand Couturier has left for Hanoji Academy. Ragio doesn't care, of course. She lets her Couturier do whatever they want. Instead, she asks Rei to take her to the REVOCS headquarters, because clearly that's way more important than whatever the Grand Couturier is up to. Back at the academy, the mysterious girl starts teasing Satsuki for excluding her from the fun, but Satsuki isn't having it, coldly snapping back. Uzu, clearly upset by the interruption, challenges the girl, but she easily blocks his attack with her parasol. And the best part is that the Elite Four are absolutely stunned that a girl without a Goku uniform could stop one of their top fighters so effortlessly. Ryuko, who is already confused about basically everything, feels an unsettling sense of dread from the girl, and Senketsu, somehow even more cautious than Ryuko, admits that he's got a bad feeling too. But of course, Uzu isn't going to give up that easily. He tries his ultimate attack, but the girl, without breaking a sweat, pokes him in the stomach, pulls a single thread from his uniform, and, boom, destroys it completely. Uzu can only manage a stunned impossible, before he's thrown out of the arena like a ragdoll. The girl starts mocking the poor stitching on the Goku uniforms, which leads to a moment of realization for Satsuki. She figures out that the girl had targeted the Banshee, the crucial life fiber that gives the uniform its shape. Shiro Iori, also watching in disbelief, confirms that only a select few should be able to even notice and destroy the Banshee so easily. Apparently, even when Ruko destroys a uniform, that fiber is the last one absorbed into her kamui, so it's a big deal when someone can just pull it apart like it's made of paper. Meanwhile, Tsumugu confirms that this mysterious girl is none other than Nui Haruhime, the grand couturier of REVOCS. Akiro, who's always overthinking everything, sees the situation getting more dangerous and complex with every second. Satsuki and Nui exchange some usual banter, which is probably just a way for Satsuki to feel like she's still in control until Ruko, impatient as ever, interrupts. She demands answers from Satsuki and declares she'll beat whoever she has to in order to get them. Satsuki agrees. She takes a seat, calmly sipping tea, and notes that things are getting out of hand now that her mother, Ragio, is stepping into her affairs. Ruko's fate is sealed, it seems, and the battle is now officially in her hands. As the horn for the match blares, Ruko demands to know where Nui's Goku uniform is. Nui, looking like a child playing dress-up, says she doesn't wear such crude things and demands to see Ruko's kamui. Ruko is already taken aback by Nui's weird behavior and impossibly flexible antics. Her confusion only grows when Nui casually pulls a huge purple sword out of her dress. It's the other half of the Scissor blade. And to make things worse, Nui nonchalantly announces that she was the one who killed Isshin Madoi, which sends Ruko into an uncontrollable rage. Ruko, her fury boiling over from everything that's happened, launches into a relentless attack, her rage blinding her to anything else. But Nui Haruhime decides now is the time to taunt her. With a wicked grin, she casually reveals the dark truth: it was she who killed Isshin Madoi, Ruko's father, using the very Scissor blades that he created. She even stole one of the blades, but not before taking a slash to her left eye in the process. The words hit Ruko like a freight train, and her fury reaches new heights, turning her blood into a searing flame of rage. But as anyone who's ever had too much of a good thing knows, too much heat can cause things to go wrong. The overwhelming anger causes Senketsu to go berserk, pushing the life fiber-infused uniform to a monstrous form that begins to consume Ruko. Instead of empowering her, Senketsu's unchecked power turns her into a hideous beast. As Ruko's uncontrollable transformation threatens to destroy her from the inside out, Mako Mankinshoku and her family rush to the scene. They can't just stand by and watch as Ruko's life slips away. Meanwhile, Tsumugu Kinagase, thinking quickly, tries to draw Nui away from Ruko, giving Akiro Mikasugi the chance he needs to use an adhesive bullet to stabilize her. But, of course, Satsuki Kuryuin has other plans. She dons her kamui, ready to stop Ruko once and for all. They clash for a brief but violent moment, tearing up the school grounds with their sheer power. It's the kind of fight where the school might just need a whole new rebuild afterward. Satsuki is ready to finish the job, convinced that Ruko is no longer useful. But in a last-ditch effort, Mako, who's been riding the chaos wave with little to no thought, intervenes. In a completely unexpected move, Mako literally slaps Ruko back to her senses, breaking through the monstrous haze that had taken over her. It's the most absurdly random thing, but it works. Ruko snaps out of her berserk state, and her life is saved. A few days later, as Ruko recovers from the battle, Satsuki reveals the full extent of her manipulations. She's the one who ordered Nui to steal the Scissor blades from Isshin. It's a cold admission, and Ruko can't help but feel the weight of it all. But Satsuki's not done yet. She announces that Ruko's battles with the Elite Four weren't just about testing her strength, they were a stepping stone. Each victory has helped her perfect the Goku uniforms, making them powerful enough to take over every school that dares to oppose her. And that's it for today. If you had fun with this recap, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to smash that like button and drop a comment with your favorite moment. Extra points if someone got decked mid-sentence. Until next time, stay sharp and try not to get eaten by your outfit.